I want to talk a little bit more with Josiah about the international student perspective, and then we'll get more into art and some advice. And so, Josiah, just to get started, can you talk a little bit more about your journey to study abroad? What led you to the decision, and maybe what were some of the things you thought through in terms of the visa part of your journey?
Okay. So I always tell the students that right from my time I was studying for my undergrad in Ghana, I had the dream of studying abroad. Okay, and whenever the US came up, I would just throw it away because I know education in the US is expensive. So most of us back in Ghana, we targeted the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Finland. At least you will get to study their language for 1 year and then school there. Because US was not a choice because the tuition in US is a lot. And without having a strong financial background or something, and even if you are very rich in Africa, it's still a lot because of the currency difference. But along the line, I asked myself that, okay, so there are students in the US that are US citizens and they are able to go to school with loans, federal loans. So is there an option where an outsider too can come to the US and then study with a loan? And I started making that research, but I realized most of the banks wouldn't give you a loan without a co-signer. None of the banks would do that. And I chanced on Empower at that time. So I was like, this is unreal because how are you going to pay for tuition, expenses, and everything without a co-signer for the student? It was quite unbelievable. So, but I started researching more, and then I realized it was real. So I actually brought people on board with Empower before myself coming on board. Yeah, I started right from 2020. Most of the Ghanaian students that came here were through me that took Empower because I started talking about it and I had a position back in my university. So whenever I had the opportunity to talk about development, innovation, and stuff, I'll tell them that if you want to study abroad, there's this opportunity I've figured out. And this. And they were like, is it true? It's unreal. And it worked for people, including my own sister. So she came a semester ahead of me. And I was like, this thing is real. So that was when I applied myself as well. And moving here, when I went for my visa interview, I would say I had the smoothest visa interview because it was like, good morning, good morning. And she asked me, And mind you, a lot of the students have been saying if you have family members in the US, the probability of your visa being issued is less. I beg to differ from that because when my sister came here, three of my siblings were here already because my junior brother was here, another brother was here. We are all from the same parents. And then my sister joined. So on my DS-160, I had already three siblings in the US. And at the same time, I'm coming with Empower. So that also makes me beg to differ that you are not being denied because of the loan. Because my sister was on loan, and then I was also coming on Empower loan as well. So when I got there, she looked on her PC and she was like, I see you have your brothers and your sisters in the US. And I said yes. And she said, what are you going to study? I told her I'm going to study my master's in engineering management. He said, so how are you planning on paying that? And I said, I have a full student loan to cover my entire cost of attendance, which is 36,000 for my first year. And the part of the amount is also for my personal expenses, which means I'm not gonna have any issues when it comes to my finances. And then she smiled and she looked at me and she asked me, why am I transferring from typical engineering to engineering management, which involves business? And I told her, right now, that's where the money is. So upon graduating from my course in the US, when I return to my country, I'm going to make a lot of money and there's a lot of opportunity in that field. And before I finished that sentence, she was like, place your finger on there. And that was it. It was as fast as that. So I began to see things differently. And moving here, I would say I've noticed that even the students that came here with Empower kind of are comfortable than the ones that came on scholarships. Because if you are here on scholarships, a scholarship may take care of your tuition and stuff, but it might not take care of your expenses. And when I moved here with Empower, my expenses is taken care of, my tuition is taken care of. All I have to do is to study. And it has been, like I've been saying, the journey has been worth it. Yeah.
There's a lot of good detail in there. But overall, just thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think something I'd like to just hear a little bit more about would be how did you prep for the visa interview, or how did you approach it?
Yeah. So before I went for my interview, I had coached my sister to go for hers and a lot of students. So I realized something very distinct about all the interviews. You know, most of the students go there and they speak like everybody else. Because you go to YouTube, you watch a ton of videos, you listen to a ton of students saying different things, and then you copy from their stories. And mind you, the counselors are tired of hearing these things over and over and over and over again. So sometimes before you start talking, they know what you're about to say. And they are ready to refuse you. Because the only reason why they are issuing the visa is that you have a story, you have a case. And then you go there to say the same thing you are watching on YouTube. I realize it doesn't work that way. So I decided to be very genuine to myself and my story. That this is what I'm coming to do. Because remember, you going for the interview alone, the counselor knows you are coming to school. Okay. And then for your finances aspect, you have got a loan. The school has issued your I-20, meaning the school has accepted your form of finances. But I think most of the students are putting attention at where attention is not much needed, because they're asking you simple, basic questions. Give precise, distinct answers and don't give unnecessary information, and they'll issue the visa. That was my idea. So when I got there, I had it in my mind that I'm going to give precise answers, no unnecessary information, and then just go straight to the point. Because I realized the consulars only refuse you with the same things you tell them. If you are going to work there silently and stand the whole day, they also look at you the whole day without making a decision. So whatever that is coming out of my mouth should work towards giving me my visa. And then I was also looking at basing on my strength instead of my weakness. Okay, so I decided to talk of things that way that's going to improve my chances of being approved than things that are not relevant. Because with the students that I used to talk to that went earlier on, I realized a lot of them had very nice stories. But those stories don't cut anymore because the counselors are tired of hearing them over and over and over again. You could as much get your visa by just saying, I'm going to study this and this because it's going to give me this. That's okay. But the students who go as far as giving unnecessary information that the consular is going to stand on and refuse them again. So they end up refusing them their own selves. So I realized that early. So when I got there, I gave myself, I was like, I have to get this visa within 2 minutes. And it happened that way. Yeah.
It's almost like you're doing a marketing campaign. Some of the things you're telling me, you're like just good practice in marketing. Don't
Yeah.
include detail that's going to distract from the goal, you know? So
Yeah.
really interesting hearing you put it that way, Josiah, or sorry, Josiah. Art, did you hear anything in there that resonates with your experience? Does Josiah's experience sort of match what how you advise people?
Get to the point, and don't answer questions that you're not asked. The idea that people are just watching YouTube videos to learn what to say in an interview. Josiah told the reason why he wanted to study in America and what he wanted to study. The reason was he'd go back home and make a lot of money. That's the most sincere, logical thing for him in his life to say. So don't go in there with a memorized story disconnected from your own life. Make it genuine and make it fit your life plan, and it'll come across really well. So everything Josiah said, I say the same thing. I mean, that was great. I mean, right, Claire? I mean, that was really good.
Awesome. It's like, wait, it's good visa interview practice. It's a good marketing campaign practice. Maybe it's just a good practice. But really great answer.
And then the thing about the most important things are you have to show why America, why this course of study for you, what's it going to do for you, and how is it going to help you when you come back, because the immigration officer assumes you want to stay in America because America is so great and where you are is less great, and they assume you want to stay after your visa's over, whether you're going to do it legally or not. And you got to give them a really good reason why you're going to go back and why you want to study what you want to study. And Josiah hit it right on the head. The other stuff, the paperwork, either MPOWER gives you the paperwork to prove you have the money to pay for education and expenses. The school, they give you some form called the I-20 that you use in the visa interview to get approved. The paperwork takes care of itself by institutions, MPOWER and the school. You are on your own when you go into that interview. That's the one thing you do on your own. And listen to Josiah one more
Not
time.
YouTube.
To Josiah.
Yes, Josiah, no YouTube unless Josiah's on YouTube, follow him. We'll have to figure that out. But so thank you both so much for kind of framing the conversation about how to approach it generally with the visa interview. But I'm going to take a step back just to make sure everyone here is on the same page. Let's talk a little bit about the basics. So Art, I think that means over to you. What is a visa in simplest terms?
A visa is I'm going to call it a sticker. Some people call it a stamp. It's a thing they put in your passport. It usually takes up a whole page, and it is used for one thing: to get you to the American border to show the passport control people, and then they ask you a few questions and let you enter. That's all the visa's for, to enter America at the border. It's a tool to present to the border control guy. The visa is the tip of the iceberg. The real, I guess, the question is, which visa does a student ask for? It's called an F1 visa.
Great. So F1 visa, so everyone here on this call that's interested in either the US and Canada or just US, I'm guessing they're trying to get an F1 visa, right? That's really the main goal right now. Art.
For the students who are interested in studying in America or Canada, the goal for America would be to get the F1 student visa. If you're going to Canada, I don't know what they call their student visa, but I'm sure there's an equivalent crazy designation. F1, like what? Why F1? Right? It's student visa. Why not
Like
SV?
a plane, right? Or a model of plane, a model of car. Let me
We saw the F1 fly by.
But despite the marketing not being great on the visa side, what are some of the requirements, Art, for the F1 visa in the US?
To get the visa named for whatever reason it's named F1, to get that, you need to show that you're enrolled full-time at an accredited school. But that's the I-20. That you show them the I-20, that takes care of that. That you can speak clearly, proficiently in English. That's the I-20. That you have proof of funding to pay your tuition and living expenses. Well, that's on the I-20, but the proof comes from MPOWER. So MPOWER gets you the I-20 through the school. The school issues it, but the MPOWER promise of funding is what goes into part of this I-20. The other thing you really need to show at the interview at the consulate, in addition to the being accepted and enrolled in the school, being proficient in English, and having proof of funding, you need to prove that you're gonna go back home. This is a thing about intent. The F1 student visa has temporary intent. You temporarily intend to come to America, study, and then whatever benefits the study allows, you could work under limited circumstances, you can work. But then once you're done studying and work study, you're supposed to go home. So you've got to show the consulate who gives you this visa that you're planning to go home, and they don't want you living in the USA full time. So you got to show that as well.
When you say living in the US full time, does that mean before you apply or during the visa itself?
before you apply. When you come to the United States, you have to live in the United States full time enough to go to class, or
Yeah,
they throw.
just to be clear, that it's you shouldn't be applying from within the US, I think is the comment. Not that once you have the visa, you have to have weird travel plans throughout the school year.
Right. You're applying to get into America from where you live outside of America. And where do you live outside? You live wherever you live full time. Right.
Perfect.
That's
So just to kind of summarize, if the goal for the US or Canadian equivalent is F1 visa to get into school, the things that matter are that I just heard. You've been enrolled at an accredited school. Great. Also a requirement to get a loan, as it turns out. Must be attending school. Be proficient in English. Also a requirement to get into school. Great. Have proof of funding. This is where MPOWER can come in and offer you a support letter, which we'll get into in a second. Then this is the part that I think others may allude to as the visa interview part. You need some type of proof that you're returning home after your studies. And then last, you have to be applying from outside the US versus you're already somehow abroad. Did I get that right, Art?
bingo. That's a
Ooh.
very good summary.
Excellent. So I did mention something called a visa support letter. So a few of the items you mentioned are unlocked by an I-20 from the school, but to get the I-20, you often need that visa support letter to show your school, like, hey, MPOWER or someone else is going to fund my education. The school is happy, and then it gets issued. So can you talk a little bit more about the support letter and how that comes into play in this process?
The support letter. So when you apply to a school, they want to know that as an international student, you have funding, and this funding will pay for the tuition, for the privilege of walking onto campus and sitting in a room to learn, and for your expenses, food, housing. So they want proof for you to get the I-20. They want proof you have funding. Most people have relatives or other folks that they know write letters and swear they're going to help pay the cost, and you've got just regular people giving them a letter saying, this is my bank account, here's a copy of the statement. And that's it depends upon who these people are. But if you go to MPOWER is the source of funds, and they're an organization. It's not some stray stranger to the consulate. They may be well-known, nice people that you're familiar with that would promise to fund you, but good luck getting an individual to actually pay money for someone else's education. Good luck. So the embassies are in other words, MPOWER gives you credibility, because MPOWER is an organization that if they promise to fund you, they'll fund you because they're in the business of funding education. So the I-20 is hinges on a support letter, and the support letter, if it comes from MPOWER, is a reliable source of funds. And I think Josiah was going to say something.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the funding, before MPOWER existed, the students that were going for their interview will attest to the fact that if you present a statement that, let's assuming I'm going for my interview and I say my uncle is paying for my tuition and I'm coming from, let's say, Ghana or Nigeria, the consular, most of them are also staying in the country where they are interviewing. They know your uncle will not pay that much for your education. Because your uncle it will take your uncle a lot of decisive power to even pay that amount of tuition for their children. And remember, these people are Americans, and in America, your uncle does not pay your tuition. Okay, your uncle in America would not pay $50,000 a semester for your in America. Even your parents wouldn't do that. They will ask you to go for loans. That is why I always tell the students, you are not refused because of loan. Because if you were actually talking of how strong your funding is, loan is one of the strongest funding you have. for your visa interview, because anybody can present any bank statement. Your dad could borrow money from someone and place in his account, and that money is not even his in the first place. So bank statements are even doubtable in the first place. But if a company based in US is going to vouch for you, because the loan sanction letter, what the students don't know is a legal letter. So MPOWER is bound to fund you because they have put themselves there. If you are to arrive in the US today and MPOWER decides not to fund you, I think it's an issue for MPOWER, from where I understand loan agreements, from unless maybe the student faults their part. So you being given the loan sanction letter for the interview alone is a very strong type of funding. And the school accepting it, the consular will also accept it, because the school had a lot of time to doubt it, because they have the international office that is supposed to go through your funding and everything, and they accepted it and issued an I-20. It's not the consular who has only about 2 minutes to make a decision that is going to doubt your loan sanction letter, because he only has to make a decision within 2 minutes. There are a lot of people in the queue, and they are not going to take your loan letter and start calling MPOWER. No, they don't have that time. So where the students actually has to put the effort, they are not putting it there. When it comes to your funding, at the moment MPOWER has provided the loan sanction letter, you have received your I-20, and you have answered your questions that this is my funding, we are done with funding. But what's more important is, what are you coming for? And then how is that thing tied towards your dream back home? And you are establishing your home ties through that. And that is where the students have to put their attention, but they are not putting it there. Yeah.
I'm going to start a new segment called Immigration Myths. And I think we've just come to immigration myth number 1. The myth that going forward with MPOWER, the loan provider, reduces your chances of getting a visa. We looked at all of our data from last year. It is very conclusive that going with MPOWER increases your chances of getting a visa across countries. So if you are someone that thinks the myth having MPOWER reduces your chances, we'll be publishing more in the coming weeks and months. It actually increases your chances. So myth 1 dispelled. We'll see if we come up with other myths we can dispel during this session. But we strayed a little bit away from sort of the pieces that go into this immigration journey. So if we want to bring it all together, Art, Josiah, maybe you can work together to help me out. So what does a student do? So the first thing they do, to me, it sounds like, is plan everything out and then apply to your school of choice is what I'm hearing as a first step, just kind of for everyone. All right, got a nod, great. So next step is, once you've been admitted to school, you would then apply with MPOWER. Good? Or arrange your proof of funding, essentially.
Yeah.
Once you get approved with MPOWER or get your funds arranged, you would then have some evidence that you have the funds. That's when you go to your school and say, hey, look, I have funds. Give me an I-20. Still good?
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. And so once you get the I-20, that is when you start preparing for your visa interview. Correct? Awesome. So, and then brings you to the visa interview. And if that goes well, you're then issued a visa or able to get a visa. So what is that? Are we past the finish line there?
Technically, yes, but it ain't over until it's over. Until that passport, you get the passport in your hand and the visa is in the passport, then it's over. But
So-
generally, Josiah, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think the consulates, once they see the visa is approved, it's good news. But it's good news when you have received the passport, because they still can change their mind anytime. That is why I always tell the students that when you are approved, at least wait and try and get your passport before you start putting on social media and all that, because sometimes they are still looking out for you. That's one thing they should know, especially if they have doubts. So they should take note of that. Until you have your passport with the visa, you should just stay low key until everything is done. Yeah.
Listen, I think the theme here is listen to Josiah.
Yes, Josiah, no YouTube, except for Josiah's channel and the MPOWER channel. We're going into kind of terms and conditions.
Yeah.
So guys, this is great. We've sort of shared a lot of different tips with our audience. Can I ask both of you to think for a minute? What is the one tip you'd like to take away throughout this process? If you could sort of give them one big takeaway, what would that takeaway be? or the tip piece of
Okay.
advice?
Okay, so I would say I've realized this secret with this whole visa issue. If you are a student, you need to know only one thing to get your visa. And that is, first of all, you have to be honest with yourself with this question. Ask yourself, why are you coming to the US? Forget about the whole visa interview. Forget about, because unless you believe what you are saying, nobody is going to believe what you are saying. These consulars there are psychologists, okay? They are reading your body language. They are reading how you pose, how you stand, how you answer your questions, your confidence, your eye contact. They are looking at all those stuff. So until you have convinced yourself that what you are saying is the truth, nobody will believe your truth. So the first thing is to ask yourself personally, before you start this whole journey of MPOWER and everything, why do you want to come to the US? If you're able to answer that question, then you shouldn't even worry about the visa interview. You get the visa in a second. Why do you want to come? You should know your why. It's not about going to YouTube and watching a ton of videos, listening to a ton of stories. It doesn't apply to you anyway. Because before you decided to come to the US, you had a reason. And that reason, I can promise you, is enough for you to be issued a visa. So instead of thinking outside the box, think inside the box. Because your very reason is inside you. And that's your main purpose for coming here. So ask yourself why, write it down, and then now compare your answers with the standards that are required to be issued a visa. If your answer does not go opposite to any of them, and you think your answer satisfies all those, that should be your answer for the visa interview, and you'll be approved.
That is a great tip. Wow.
That's
So know your story, and be confident in it. Art, what about you?
You know, I'll add. Okay, so rule takeaway number one: know your story, be confident in it. The Josiah channel for more information. The dude, make a video. You gotta have a channel. So everybody's got. I got one. You gotta have one. So know why. Why do you want to come to America? And the reason better be a reason that includes studying. Number one, studying. Why do you want to come here to study? And then tell me how you're going to use. The second thing I'd add would be, then tell me how to use the story of why you want to come to America to study this subject. Then get these skills to do what? Stay in America? You're supposed to convince them that you're going to go back. Now, plans change. If you're in the interview and you're saying you plan to go back home, you're you at that minute in time. 4 years or 2 years go by, and maybe you want to stay on a work visa in the future. Well, you can change your mind. You're human. But at the time of the interview, everything Josiah said is right, and your story better make sense to connect you back to your home country. And the other thing about financing, who is a stronger source of funds? MPOWER, the lending organization for international students, or your uncle in Ghana? It's kind of funny you said that, but it's true. So don't worry about the funding. Don't worry about the paperwork. You got 2 minutes. 2 minutes to get your story across. 2 minutes. 2. We've been speaking for over half an hour. You've got 2 minutes. So use them wisely.
Well, so far we have unofficial tip, always listen to Josiah. Official tips are know your story, be confident in it. Tip number 2, Art, was essentially make sure that you have a credible story as well. I think it's sort of like, is it uncle or is it MPOWER?
And the underlined word is realistic. Okay.
Yes.
Your story should
Credible.
be realistic. Yeah. Very realistic. Because you can't walk up to the interview and say stuff that are unrealistic.
Know your story, be
Because
confident
yeah.
in it, but it has to be truthful. It's the third part, or it
Yeah.
has to be realistic.
It has to be realistic.
Realistic.
No winning the lottery, it seems, as a pathway to paying back or a pathway to going abroad. But so my one, Art, I see your face. What's your addition?
one last thing. Don't mention too much how great America is. America, oh, New York City, Chicago, oh, Texas, oh. No, don't make it sound like you want to come here because it's here. You want to come here because your future comes through here and takes you back there. So, right, Josiah, would you say that?
Yeah, I think that point is very important, because if America is that great, then it means you are thinking of staying. If for instance, students go there, you are coming for education in America, and then what's the criteria? You return back home after your education. But students go there, it's like they go there to praise America. The consular knows America is great. They were born, they live there from their childhood. You don't have to convince them America is great. So rather convince them how America is going to make your life great upon return to your country. You can tell them that an education in America is compared to no other country. And so upon return to your country, you can even cite an example that you have friends that went to school in America, and when they return right now, they are getting the big contracts in your country. So it will now ring a bell in the mind of the consular that, oh, okay, wow. So it means this guy is really serious about this education and is going to make a lot of money back home. And that is all they want to hear. You getting here and then changing your mind to stay is very normal. Because if they didn't want you to have avenues to stay, they wouldn't have H1B, OPT, and all that. But that is not for you to talk about at the interview. The US has a lot of opportunities when you get here. But as at the time of your visa, you have to certify that criteria that you are going to return to your country. And the consular knows there is a high probability that you will get an opportunity to stay here, and they don't have any issues with that. But you have to let them know you are coming to study. And so live in the moment and then get the visa, and then the rest can come later on. Yeah.
Right. So
Wow.
we're gonna. That's great advice. So on this sort of note, we're gonna just magnify or double click into the visa appointment for a little bit, and then we're gonna switch to audience Q&A. So if you've yet to ask your question, audience, in the Q&A field, now is the time. The last 10-15 minutes, we'll go through some of the most popular questions for you. So double clicking into the visa interview, Art, when you advise people, any tips or what to prepare for in advance that, maybe a list of things that you share with people that would be useful to think through to prep for a visa interview? And then we'll see if Josiah, how his experience matches.
All right. Okay. So I'm not a normal immigration lawyer. It's so easy to give somebody a list of stuff, but that's just another list of stuff that's going to confuse them or make them nervous. You just got to know you have 2 minutes. That's all you got. And the paperwork, if they even look at it, speaks for itself. So you go in there and basically do what Josiah has been telling us. You go in and you answer the questions they ask, stay engaged in the conversation with the officer and listen. Don't answer things that they're not asking you, and stick to the overall theme of going to get an education, because an American education is worth its weight in gold all over the world. And when you come back home with that education, you're going to do X. And that X needs to be realistic. It can't be, I'm going to come back and be the president of my country, or get out of here, or the governor of a province. Get lost. It has to be realistic. And you got 2 minutes. Okay, so for me, 2 minutes is the thing. And don't waste a lot of time. Listen, answer, and the overall goal is to convince them you're going to come get an education that's recognized all over the world and go back home. At that point in time, you're planning to go back home.
So Josiah, any extra tips in terms of prep? Like if you are preparing a visa interview, any of the extra insight?
All right. So I want to talk about two things. First of all, if you were going to Germany, Finland, or Estonia, or anywhere to study, I would advise you carry all your documents, submit, go home for 2 weeks, and wait for them to make a decision. But with US, it's totally different. That's why they let you fill the DS-160. That alone should tell you they don't really need your documents. US has been known for years to not care about documents. Even for immigrant visas, they still don't care about documents because they think anybody can go anywhere, type anything, print it, and submit. So US don't care about documents. And nobody can actually establish the authenticity of documents in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Students should also know that. So, and one thing is they are psychologists. So you should take note of persuasion. If you are not asked the document, never bring out that document because you are overdoing things. It's like if I'm trying to sell you a car and then I'm telling you, hey, I have a Honda CR-V. Are you interested in buying? I've not even heard of your view. And then I start sending screenshots of my documents of the cars and stuff. The first thing you're going to think is, hey, is this guy a scam? Right? And it's the same thing with the interviews. Those guys there are, like I said, they are psychologists. So you trying to persuade them too much is a red flag. We have students asked about their funding. They ask, hey, how are you going to pay for your tuition? Hey, my dad is, and he starts bringing out a bank statement. It's a red flag. Until you are asked for a document, never submit any kind of document because they have not asked you to prove it. They have not asked to prove that what you are saying is the truth or not. So students should take note of that. And also read the preparation towards your visa interview. It's not about documents. Students should at least even read the DS-160 they are submitting, because if you look on the DS-160, they have written on it that if you think you have documents to support your case, you can carry it along. But the two things they are only asking of you is your passport and your DS-160 and the interview. You should know it means the consular is making their decision on your passport and your DS-160. They don't care about your loan sanction letters. Even if you bring 10 pack of documents, they likely wouldn't even ask for it or look through it. And even if you submit it, they don't believe it. I'm telling you, they don't believe, because anybody can sit anywhere, type and print and submit. US is not Europe. They don't care about documents. So they've stated it on your DS-160. When you read it for students, they'll tell you your I-20, your DS-160, and your passport. These are your compulsory documents. And these are the only documents required to issue a visa. Now, all the other documents, they have written that if you think it can support your case, it means they're not even forcing you to bring them. They are saying if you think. So have them in your bag or whatever you take inside. But just have it at the back of your mind that the information you have provided to them in your DS-160, your I-20 that the school has provided, and then your passport, and then you personally standing there, that is all they need. That is why they made an interview provision. They could have asked you to submit your document online and wait for a decision from the embassy if document was what they wanted. Because when you go to the Schengen countries and all these countries, they are used to taking documents for visas. And so they are experts at finding out whether a document is fake or not. US does not care about documents. They don't care whether you have a letter from the Senate, you have a letter from your government. They know anybody can sit anywhere, type, sign, and bring it there. And they've seen that countless times. Okay, so their required document is passport, I-20, DS-160, and your brain. Because if you answer your questions well, they might not even ask for the loan sanction letter. They will not ask for it. And students should also know that when consulars are asking you documents, that submit these documents, it doesn't mean it's a good sign your visa is going to be approved. It means you are failing with your confidence and answering your questions. Because the more they're asking of documents, it means they have doubts and they are now looking for proofs. So if you answer your questions well, I tell you sometimes, no, me, I didn't show any document. Because he asks you, hey, this, you answer it. They are interested in your what you are saying. Because whatever they are typing is from what you are telling them, not from your document. Because if you have a printer, you have a computer, you can create a document. And that 2 minutes that they are interviewed, they can call MPOWER on phone within that 2 minutes and then ask MPOWER if Josiah is a bona fide MPOWER student or anything. But if Josiah is able to answer them, hey, this is my tuition, this is covering my entire education, I'm not going to struggle with finances, this, and then Josiah is confident, why wouldn't they issue the visas? They want you to come here because America gets a lot of money from international students. If MPOWER provides funds for 10 students, just multiply that amount of money America is getting from you. So they want you to come here. But what they don't want is that you come here and the next day you are not schooling and then you become a public burden. Okay, they already have a lot of homeless people here, a lot of people jumping through the border that they are taking care of. So you should have that at the back of your mind. They want you here. Now, tell them the reason why they should admit you here, and then tell them the reason that you are not going to be the next burden on them, and that's it. So you don't have to go extra mile with all this junk of documents and then trying to convince them they don't care about your document. A consular sometimes does not even look at the document they ask of. They just want to know this guy has it here. They don't even care about the document. But tell them what they need to know and then give them the story, and that's it.
Wow. I think we've stumbled on myth number 2, Josiah. It's myth number 2 is my documents will get me through the visa interview. That is a myth. No document will stop
Never
a bad time.
no. Unless you forgot your passport, then that one, that document.
All right.
Yeah,
If you haven't been
or
issued a
you don't go with
passport,
the
more of a did not pass go, did not collect $200, did
Yeah.
not.
But it's so
Yeah.
true. And you listen to YouTube, you listen to lawyers, everything is about the process and the paper and the paper and the paper. It's 2 minutes, a human being on that side of the window and another human being on this side of the window. And the guy or the lady or the agent, the government official, they're trying to figure out what's your deal? What are you all about? And why are you going to study in America? 2 minutes.
When I was going for my interview, I met some students in the sitting area, and I realized everybody had so many documents than me because they have a junk. Some had 3 bank statements, their dad, their mom, their. I was like, I'm not going with all these documents. I only had my DS-160, my passport, my I-20, my MPOWER loan, and then my certificate and transcript. Because I realized the certificate and transcript, if I'm asked, that's also a proof that I'm a student and I actually have educational credentials, which is very reasonable. But I didn't take any extra documents because you telling the consular alone, like I said, if he's going to believe you with your words, that's it. He will not believe you with the document, than he will believe you with the words. So because you are standing in front of him, he's talking to you, he's looking at your body language, he's looking at your posture, he's looking at your eye contact, he's looking, because remember, you don't have to think to tell the truth. If a consular is going to ask me, how am I planning to fund my education, and I have to now think about it and roll my eyes to think about it, means I'm thinking of a lie. Okay, so these are actually stuff that the students should actually put concentration on. That be confident, answer straight questions, be precise. They don't care about so many of their documents. Some of the students are even asking, they come into my DM that MPOWER gave me 50,000 and my 2 years is going to cost 70,000. So if the consular asks me about how I'm going to pay for the following year, and I'll tell them, look, no consular is going to ask you how you're going to pay for the following year, because whatever you are doing there is centered around one academic year. So you are approving funds for one academic year, which is 9 months. They don't, because if you are able to pay for that 9 months, why wouldn't you be able to pay for the other ones? They don't care about that. You are giving yourself extra pressure for things that you wouldn't be asked about. Okay, they know loan have been provided. The I-20, everything on it has been detailed to one academic year. Prove it to them right now, because you can arrive in the US today, okay, and then next year you have a scholarship. You can arrive in the US today and win the DV lottery. You can arrive in the US today and get married, and your immigration status has changed. Anything can happen from the time you arrive in the US. But right now, you standing there in front of the consular, you are not in US, you are in Africa, you are in India, you are in wherever you are. Prove to them that you can pay your tuition this semester and next semester for an academic year. That is it. And you don't need to carry all the documents in the world. Because when it comes to this whole visa interview, the more you are putting in, the less your chances of getting the visa. The more you are struggling to get the visa, the more you are forcing to convince the guy sitting there, is the less your chances of getting approved. So you realize people with all those huge histories are the ones that get refused. And they get annoyed that, why would they refuse? I told him I'm going to there. It doesn't matter. Tell them the simple, what they want to hear is that you are coming to study. After studies, you are going home. The immigration officer, they are not admission officers. Okay, so you are not there to tell them about your statement of purpose. You are not writing a personal statement to them. They are not admission officers. Some of them don't even know a lot about engineering. They don't know a lot about your field you are saying you are going to study. They don't care about the research you have done. That is your own issue. But how does that benefit you? And how does that tie you back to your dream and your stay back in your home country? And how is that going to improve upon your life that you have in your country right now, that you are choosing to spend so much in the US for an education? That is what they are looking at. All this, a lot of stuff we are saying, it doesn't matter. They don't care about it. He is an immigration consular. He is not an admission officer. He's not international programs office. He doesn't care. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes,
Perfect.
snaps.
Hire him. That's exactly it. I mean, that's it.
Wow. So we after that incredible answer, we have made it to the last few minutes of the webinar. So guys, I'm going to take a few of the most common questions and see if we can cover a few in our last little bit. There was a few that stood out as a lot of people were curious. So I'm going to start with Art. Art, a lot of people want to understand if the I-20 is tied to the school they're going ahead with. For example, if I applied to 5 different schools, I started the process with one school for the I-20. If I want to change schools, I'm guessing how would that work for these people that are exploring that right now? Is the I-20 tied to this? Is the whole process tied to the school essentially?
Yes. Yes. Essentially, you get accepted, enrolled in one school. That one school needs to see that you have proof to pay for the first academic year. The MPOWER funding letter, support letter, shows them you've got the money. They've already enrolled you, admitted you. And that I-20 is all about you at that school, because another school might cost more or less. And then it will be a whole new I-20 with the details of another school on there. So one school, one I-20. And then if you change schools, you get a new I-20 and you start over.
So I think the takeaway point is here, it's best to be confident in the school you're going forward with versus starting the process with a few different ones.
Yeah.
That was a big yes, I would say, looking at the I expression. So Josiah, I think this is a question for you. If you mentioned a little bit about this earlier, if a visa officer asks sort of how you're going to pay back your loan, is that a realistic question, Art and Josiah, and how would you tackle that?
Yeah. Okay, so I think that question has come out a lot. When you're asked how you're going to pay back your loan, please don't be talking of your employment in US or your campus job, how you're going to use your campus job to pay for your, they don't want to even hear that, because you're in Africa and you're already thinking of working here. No. So rather, why don't you tell them you have money for personal expense? Because, for instance, if you are giving a loan now, the amount you are giving in personal expense exceeds what you are paying in interest payment. So if I was the student, I'd rather tell them I'm paying about $200 a month in interest payment, but MPOWER is giving me over $8,000 in personal expense, which means even if I don't get a campus employment, I can still pay my interest without any financial burden. And that is it. They know you don't have to go and work off campus to pay that $200. So $200 is not much here. Okay. And the students should know that most of the students coming are master students, right? So master students are working class people. So limit how much you are talking about your parents in your interview when it comes to finances. You are a master student, you are a mature student, you chose to take a loan. And if you had so much, you wouldn't take a loan. So don't go lying that your dad owns a gold factory and all that. It raises red flags. A lot of students, I don't know where they get that information from, but when they go for the interview, they ask of repayment. They're like, my dad owns this company, and my dad is going to help me pay it. If your dad has that much, why is your dad not paying your tuition and you have to take a loan? So let them know you are a working class, you are a master's student, and you know what you are doing. So when they ask you about repayment, just tell them that this is the amount I'm giving. Now, even if I choose not to work on campus, $200 a month is very insignificant. Looking at the amount of money I'm giving in personal expenses, which is over $8,000, and the semester is just 3 months. So my entire interest payment for the semester is $600 out of my $8,000, which makes you are comfortable. Don't go telling them my company back in Ghana is going to pay my. Those things are unrealistic. My dad owns a gold factory. If your dad owns a gold factory, why MPOWER in the first place? You shouldn't be saying those kind of stuff. Yeah.
You go to school. If your father owns gold factories, stay in it.
Yeah.
I agree. Again, I agree with Josiah.
Yeah.
Art needs a stamp of Art approved answer, which is kind of that's the whole session, it seems, which is awesome. So I have one question that I'm going to answer just because it's MPOWER specific, and then we're going to move towards wrapping up this session. So the MPOWER specific question. Many people asked, how do I get that visa support letter from MPOWER? So it's pretty simple in that if you apply for an MPOWER loan and are approved, it'll get issued automatically. It's not like you have to come request one. It's part of our process. So nothing extra there. If you need a visa support letter, once you're approved, it's generated. So simple answer for me, unlike the ones these two have been answering for. So, all right, Josiah, now that we're sort of in the final few minutes of our session, I would say you've really highlighted one tip throughout this, which is it's focus on your 2 minutes, your 2-minute narrative. Makes a lot of sense. You're confident and it's credible. Let's say you can't use that final tip. What is the one extra tip you'd leave everyone with? Or if they focus on the story, what's the second tip they should focus on?
I read a quote by Aristotle. He said, if you want to know what important words to give at a particular time, see yourself in this way. You are sitting on a chair and you are about to be killed in 2 minutes. Okay? Tell the person about to kill you why he should leave you in 2 minutes. Okay? Use that same approach for your visa. In 2 minutes, say the most important things you think should be said. Say the most attractive things about who you are, what you want in life, what you are going for in 2 minutes. Just have that kind of mentality. That in 2 minutes, prove to the consular whatever you have to prove to them in 2 minutes. So filter out your words. Know what to say in 2 minutes. Know what not to say in 2 minutes. Because within that 2 minutes, actually the visa is given in your first 2 answers of the interview. If your first 2 answers don't go, don't think your last answer that they asked, how are you going to fund your education? You said MPOWER. You think that's why you are refused? No. No consular is refusing you because of your last answer. They are consulars. And US particularly, they don't want you to know the exact reason you are refused. So don't think the fact that you said something and they started, some of the students are like, when I said MPOWER, he started typing and he refused me. No. Whatever he's typing might not even have anything to do with MPOWER. Probably you even made a mistake in your I-20 because there are students coming with MPOWER. When they are filling their form, they ask on the I-20 who is going to pay for your trip. And they think the trip means your flight, but trip is not your flight. Trip is what you are coming to do in the US. Who is paying for it? So a lot of students will go and then they'll be selecting family, parent. Meanwhile, that's you. You are a master's student. You are self-sponsored. You have taken a loan. You are sponsoring yourself. The loan is your money. So you are self-sponsored. That is why most of the admission letters they issued to you, they wrote self-supported master's student and you took a loan. So these are stuff that mistakes we are making already. And the course, let's see these mistakes. And he's typing and you think it's because you said you are funded by MPOWER. No. You should rather go sit down and then think about what you said again and you realize where your mistake was. Yeah.
And I guess I would chip in. You've got 2 minutes. Speak sincerely from your heart. Answer only the questions they ask you. Don't go off on tangents, and keeping it simple is the key. Keep it simple. And it is a psychological exercise where you are making the decision maker feel good about approving you. So you've got to really be, Josiah said it, you got to be confident. You have to look people in the eye. You can't be fidgeting or looking for paper. The more you get distracted from human interaction, the worse it gets. Interact with another human being as a human being and make them feel good about approving you. And you got 2 minutes, go.
Great. So I'm going to add a little bit of advice to the amazing things these two said, which is start early. You don't want to be anxious during the visa interview because you don't have much time to prepare. You don't want to be anxious during any part of this. So as soon as you're confident in your program, get started. Give yourself some time. So that will help you be confident in the interview when you know you're not rushing. So as early as you can start, and I know many of you are still thinking about studying, awesome. Keep it up. Start early. So Josiah, Art, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom today. It's been really incredible. For those attending, if you didn't write down everything they said, luckily we're going to post this webinar. So we'll share a screen. We'll share a recording. You can find it on our social media. And if this session was a bit too US focused for you, you're looking for more Canadian advice, we actually do have a session next month, just focus on Canada. So stay tuned. More to come for an invite. Further, if you're feeling really good about the immigration now, but you want to explore an MPOWER loan, you want to learn more about something else related to international education, check out our website. It's being updated with our schedule for the next few months in the next day or so. So we'd love to have you again. So please join us. Take a look in the chat if you want some helpful links as you go through your journey. And then, of course, if you didn't get a chance yet, leave your comment and we'll get back to you soon. But thank you so much to our panelists once again, Art, Josiah, just a great session. Everyone else will reach out via email. We hope to see you again. Stay empowered.
All right.